I'm in the 70s. I've been in a wheelchair 30 years. I can't even believe that. You know. I was, some nursing home programming. I forget what they were calling them back then. It was changing from nursing home to something. It was an MRDD facility. You know, these are all archaic terms anymore. But somebody made the mistake of hiring me, okay, to be one of these programmer orderly types. And I was in charge of like activities. I was not trained in OT, which is like sort of a problem. You know, they just hired this guy off the street in a wheelchair, and I remember the head of the facility said, "Oh, you'd be such a great role model." You know, I hadn't written my book at that point, so this woman had no idea how dangerous a territory she was in. But anyway, two of my favorite people at this facility were Janie and Jeff, and they were in love, and both of them had developmental disabilities of one kind or another, one CP and another spina bifida, and I can't remember the specific clinical issues, but they'd been institutionalized for all of their life. And in most, I mean, if you really looked at them, the issues mostly had to do with the fact that they had been institutionalized. That really defined their personalities way more than any of the clinical issues. And I took them out in my pickup truck one day, and I said, we're going to go to the beach, and we are going to hang out on the beach. And they both had wheelchairs, so all three of us have wheelchairs. I put my wheelchair on the side of the pickup truck on a kind of a bike rack thing that I put together. And Janie and Jeff, I threw their chairs in the back, and I stuffed them in. And Janie had a leg bag, and it was very complicated, and we had all these sorts of things we had to do. And I stuffed them into the front seat, and we get in this little Toyota, and we drive down the Oregon highway to the beach, and we come to this beach near Coos Bay, and we drive out to the beach. I was kind of in OT maniac mode. The only time in my life we were going to the beach, and nothing was going to stop us going to the beach. You know, and the fact that I had two wheelchairs in the back, and that Janie had a leg bag, and that the whole thing seemed a little wacky, you know. And I don't know if there was an insurance agent who could have looked at this situation. I mean, we were off premises, you know, wheelchair hanging on the side of the truck. Okay, back in the 70s, that was something from an asteroid. Okay, that was not even in the solar system really much. So we're driving down, we get there, I get them out, I get them on the beach, and we got this sand to go across. And it's dry sand for a long time, and it's low tide, and I just wanted to get us closer to the beach. And we get closer to the beach, and you know, here's the issue where you lose control, because as an OT, you can create a situation. You know, you can make a scenario where people are going to thrive that gets them out of their kind of bubble, institutional bubble, clinical bubble, whatever bubble it is, bubble of low expectations or fears that they might have about being out in the world as a person with a disability. But you get them out of that bubble, you don't know what they're going to do. And in most cases, you're lucky that you don't have to see it. Because it can be pretty wacky and pretty scary. In my case, I was permitted to see it because we were on this beach outing, and boy, we were getting out onto the sand, and I was pushing them from behind, and they were stuck in the sand, and I'm just hauling ass behind them, pushing them down the beach toward the tide line, pushing them down the beach. And then we were sort of sitting there, and the wind came up, and it was kind of nice. And the moment we started to have a relaxing little moment of pleasure, and Jeff said to me, "I can't believe we're here, John. I can't believe we're here." "Oh, Jeff, stop it. Oh, Jeff, stop it. Just look at the water." And you're looking at the water, and it was great. And behind me, I look, and there's a cop car with a light on. Cop walks out onto the beach. And now, you know, I'm like, oh, what's going on here? And the officer says, "You folks okay here?" You know, my hackles are up. You know, I'm like, "Yeah, man, Attica," you know. I mean, I'm ready, you know, for anything, you know. I got my team, Janie and Jeff, okay? We're disabled people, man. Don't you repress me. Didn't quite go that way, though. Cop says, "Well, just wondering what you're doing out here. Are you trying to get to the water?" I said, well, no, we're just trying to get close to the water. You know, we're from the Sayusla Care Center. You know, we've come here. We just want to have a nice little outing at the beach. And he said, well, we've been getting some calls, sir. And he didn't know who to look at. He really didn't know who to talk to here. I mean, fortunately, Janie's eyes were kind of cockeyed. So it was either Jeff or me. And after he talked to me for a bit, I think he was hoping for Jeff, but no. We've been getting some calls, see. Some people were concerned that maybe you were trying to do something to end your lives. And I'm just looking at just the utter ridiculousness of this. Suicide by pushing someone across dry sand into the ocean. That's a new one. So I thought, okay, all right, now we are gonna smush this cop. We've got him, okay? And I just wheel around with this sort of, almost like, oh, come on, officer, please, man. And Jeff steps up to the plate, beats me to the punch, and says, is that a real gun? Wow, that's a real gun. Janie, that's a real gun. All of a sudden, my hey man, leave us alone, okay? It's like, hey, forget the beach, Janie. Look, it's a real gun. My little OT, let's go to the beach outing has turned into, gun demo. Mannix has come and destroyed the whole thing. Well, we got off the beach. We got back home. All Jeff wanted to talk about was the gun we saw. You can't control how it's going to work. But Jeff was Jeff, and Janie was Janie. And the best thing was not how they behaved, but that they were there at all. I gave them the permission, like you give them the permission. In a story that some of you know, which I'll tell with some trepidation here, and then get us all out to the parties and the continuing of the estrogen rave that needs apparently to happen a little bit more. I was in such fantastic, I'm in great shape now, but I was in fantastic shape about 5-6 years out of rehab. I was living in Chicago in the 80s. I had a girlfriend named Melinda. Her name is Martha in my book, but her real name is Melinda. She had a little trouble with the boyfriend in a wheelchair, but I was pushing it, man. It's like she was not gonna, I was gonna marry this woman. I was gonna propose to her. It was gonna happen. So I was constantly doing kind of things to, giant dinners, romantic kind of trips out of town, whatever. We were living together at the time. And eventually she kind of got it wasn't going to work out. And somebody who's like a paraplegic who is presented with a no is going to push it until really they have to come and take me away. And that was kind of the way it was for poor Melinda. She really, she tried hard. We had a great relationship, but ultimately it was just like, no, okay? Just, what about no, don't you understand? But around the time that we broke up, I had this experience where I was accepted to be one of the journalists in space. It was a program of 40 people who were picked by NASA to be a part of the space program. It was something that the Challenger disaster, nipped in the bud in the end. But I got all this notoriety because of the 40 people. It was Walter Cronkite, people like Forrest Sawyer, Lynn Scherr, Geraldo Rivera didn't even make the cut. But he tried, man. But there I was, and the only person from NPR, which really annoyed the science reporters. And the case that I made to them was, it started out to be, it was a classic OT exercise where I said to myself, okay, the reason I want to do this is because I should be able to do it. I'm a journalist, so I should be able to do it. Whereas the OT mentality